Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, where we talk about business, leadership, and insurance. That way, on your worst day, when you need it the most, you will be insured. Now, thank you so much for joining us on this special CinderToot edition of Be Insured. You might not think bathroom humor can be philosophical, but my guest today would argue otherwise. He is not only a dear friend, but he shares with me the only parenting skill I have, which is fart jokes. John Mashni is a writer, attorney, entrepreneur, and now the author of a new children's book called CinderToot. Some of you may remember John from previous shows where we talked about personal reinvention and the power of reinvention, and I'm super excited to have him back on. Today we'll chat about what motivated him to write this hilarious twist on a classic fairy tale and what life lessons us adults can learn from it. John, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, my goodness, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. And as always, I'm joined by my awesome co-host,
Eric Gestring, the Mardigian Agency.
Yeah. John, before we jump in, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about you and how the idea of the book came to you? This is one of my favorite stories.
Well, first of all, thank you again, both you, Luke, and Eric. It's great to be with you guys, as always. My background, I am an attorney. I practice law at Foster Swift. I'm practice in the business, intellectual property, tax, and entertainment areas. So kind of a transactional practice, pretty broad. Help entrepreneurs, help business owners manage big IP portfolios, and do a lot with privacy and entertainment as well. So work on some films, represent authors, represent some television producers, musicians, and things like that. I also teach at MSU and Cooley Law School, so kind of varied, and just do a ton of different stuff. And the book came about, and it seems crazy that me, an attorney who works at a pretty big firm, said, hey, let's write a children's book. It's like, what's the right career move? Like, yeah, who's giving John advice? But it really came from my love of stories. 20 years ago, I went to film school. Before I went to law school, I worked in audio and video. I actually wrote a couple screenplays. And then when I went to law school, those kind of dreams or goals kind of faded away. And it wasn't until after I graduated from law school, literally the first month, one of my old film buddies called me and said, John, I hate attorneys, but I like you, and I need someone to help me with my film. And that kind of led me to practicing in entertainment law. So I love stories. I love telling stories. And as my kids are getting older, I have 4 great kids right now, ages 10, 8, 6, and 3. And a few years ago, they didn't want to read books at night necessarily. They wanted me to tell them stories, maybe because my stories were funnier or better. I don't know. But one of the stories that we had so much fun telling is what we turned into the book. And literally, I told them this story, and they wanted to hear it every single day for months. I mean, I probably told them this story over 100 times. It was just so much fun, and I changed a little bit every time. But the basic premise was the same, and we came up with so many different versions. And it's, of course, the story of Cinderella, except that instead of losing her glass slipper as she's running down the steps, she picks up the glass slipper, but as she's bending over to pick it up, she passes gas, she toots, and then leaves. And so instead of the prince having a glass slipper or a slipper to go and take around the kingdom and find the foot that fits into the slipper, all the prince has is the smell of her toot that he remembers. And
a princess's journey begins not with the slipper, but with the fart.
And so it's so ridiculous, but it is so funny, right?
Yes.
We had so much fun. We had so much fun. And what I love about it is my kids love it, but even adults love it. And it really does bring joy to every single person that reads it, whether you're a kid or an adult. The number of adults that have messaged me that don't have kids and said, I could not stop laughing at this book has been amazing. So that's the genesis. And really, and I had no intention of turning any of my stories. I just thought this is my time with the kids, and I love my kids. And so initially it was just, I was working on other projects. I was actually working on a book on reinventing yourself, like we talked about, maybe a year ago. And eventually one day I realized, I'm a lawyer. I have a busy practice. I do all these other things. I was not going to be able to get a book released, like a big nonfiction book on reinvention, within a couple of years' time, just with the amount of work and effort and energy that it would take to do it. So a friend said, well, why don't you get something out next year? And this was last year. Why don't you get something out in 2020 and you could just do this funny story, one of the funny stories you tell your kids. And I thought he was crazy because it was just like, you guys, this is nuts. Okay, I am a tax attorney. Like, I do intellectual property. You guys are crazy. This is nuts. And then finally I was like, well, I could do it. It is really funny. And then I had a kind of a discussion with my wife, and I said, is this the right thing to do? And what we decided together was, let's not just write the book to write the book. Let's write the book and incorporate the kids into every aspect of it.
That's amazing.
So that they will see how to create something, how to start a business, how to execute on an idea. And I think that was really the point or the purpose of writing the book, was to show my kids how to execute and create and do something creative and actually like manifest it, actually have it be something that we do together. And it's been amazing, right? That the last few months or last year really has been us working on this book together. They helped me through every step of the process. They helped every single draft. I wrote 13 different drafts. They heard every single draft. They knew when I changed a single word. My daughter said, "Oh, you changed ran to jumped." It's like, well, how did you know that? Because they had memorized the story. They helped me pick an illustrator. They helped me pick editors, right? They helped, we said we're going to cut out a piece of the royalties, whatever we make, whatever comes in, we're going to give it away to a charity that we all pick together, right? Because I think that's part of the teaching process. It's going to be a local charity, and it's going to help kids that are my kids' ages. And we said, let's go help kids that are exactly your ages. So it's been this incredible journey, and it's really just getting started, because now, for a long time, it was only my close friends that knew about it and kind of, inner circle. But now that it's getting out there, the messages that I'm getting are just so fun, so incredible. We have kids literally asking their parents to buy separate copies for each kid because they're going and they're hiding and they're reading it, and they don't want other kids to read their copy. Parents are cracking up. People are buying like 10, 15 copies to give away for Christmas or holidays. It's just been so fun. And I'm getting these messages like, my kids now want to tell stories. It's so fun. I don't know what else to say other than that's kind of the genesis, and I have no idea where it's going. I am excited, and it's been super fun. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture into what the journey has looked like.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. I mean, that's like you can make a movie off of just that year of your life that you made that off of, and it would be incredibly entertaining. And
it would be. It'd be like bedtime stories with Adam Sandler.
Well,
but the Lebanese version, with lots of tabbouleh.
What's crazy is, it's also we were in a pandemic.
Yeah,
so it's just the other thing that I looked at. I had a moment in March when everything first closed down, and I think you guys would be interested in this. I literally put the book down because I'd written 13 drafts at that point. I had not hired an illustrator. And when everything shut down, I just felt this anxiety, even for myself, my own family, for other families. Everybody's hurting. I thought, is this the right thing to do with my time? Because it's silly, because it's humorous, it's joyful. It didn't match the tenor of everything that I was seeing, every person I talked to.
But it's our mission, right?
Well, here's what happened. For 2 months, I put the book down and I didn't touch it because I was just so into the pandemic and trying to survive myself and my friends and family and clients. And then one night, it was during the week, it was about midnight, and I couldn't sleep, and I just sat at my kitchen table and I found a printed off copy of the manuscript, no illustrations. And I just said, I'm just going to read it. And so I started reading the story, my own story that I'd written and told hundreds of times. And it was past midnight, and I was cracking up. I was laughing out loud. I forgot how funny it was. I could not stop laughing. I thought I was going to wake up the kids. I was laughing so loud. And I had the realization that this is exactly what the world needs right now. People need joy. People need humor, fun. And it's not a crude book, even though it deals with toots, right, with farting. It's not a crude book. It's a beautiful book. It's uplifting. It's very funny. The artist, Kate Cosgrove, did a phenomenal job. And so it really, the pandemic convinced me that now is the perfect time to bring joy to people.
Yep, and as soon as you see this on Facebook Live, you'll see me in my Christmas suit, and you'll chuckle again and be filled with joy.
It's not even Thanksgiving yet, Eric. Come on, man. Gotta get Black Friday before we start celebrating Christmas.
John, this is Eric, and I just want to say, when your book was released, it quickly shot to #1 on Amazon and got tons of awesome reviews. Why do you think there's been such a positive response with the book?
Well, part of it is, me really laying the groundwork to get the word out to people and try to share it. But I really believe that it's more than just the people I know. It's that here's how I look at it. What would you pay for 30 minutes of joy with a child? Yeah. And when I realized that I was not selling a book and I was selling about 30 minutes of joy with a child or with someone else, it really shifted how I looked at the book and how I look at writing any children's book. And so I think when people read it and they have this amazing experience with their kids where they're laughing by the second page. In fact, if you read the copyright page, adults will be laughing because I put jokes into the most boring and banal part of most books is the copyright. And so I think to me it comes down to parents are getting it, and the reaction of kids is incredible. Kids love the story because it's funny but not crude. There are so many even little jokes that parents will see that the kids won't see, right? And I don't even want to name them all, but we spent so much time. There are so many jokes within jokes and the illustrations. You can't just read it once and see every joke. It might take you 5 or 6 times to see, most of the humor in the book. And so to me, it's just, I don't know, other than it makes me laugh. Literally, when I read it, I read it yesterday, I still laugh out loud.
Do you think maybe some of it has to do with the times that we're in with the pandemic, and maybe that joy that it brought you is starting to spread to other people?
I hope that's true, because it is still a challenging time, and I don't know if it's going to get better. I don't know when it's going to get better. Mm-hmm. We need joy. I think there's just no question. We need joy. We need humor, and it's really an underappreciated part of life.
Amen.
Yeah, it's such a serious time. Nobody wants to joke, and it's like, joking's okay.
Eric always jokes.
Yeah, so. Yeah, sometimes not okay. So, John, I think part of, this is my adding my color to your answer. I think part of the success of this book is just who you've been. You've done, pro bono work where you can as an attorney. Before that, you would mentor and guide people. You were always generous with your time, even when you didn't have a lot of it. And I think when you made the ask, the law of reciprocation kicked in, and people said, "How could I not help John with this? This sounds amazing. He's a great dad. If this came from him fathering his kids, it's got to be quality." And I think anybody listening, success can come just from being really good at what you do, but it also can come from just the way that you have loved other people throughout your life. And when the time comes and you ask for help, it's a wonderful Christmas. It's a wonderful life, right? Richest man in the world, had all the friends. That's and you don't realize that you have that until you actually ask. And so, John, thank you for taking the risk to put that out there and see who would respond. I think the world's going to love this thing. I know I've even had. For our listeners, I have an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and then a 6-month-old. And my 9-year-old's reading it to my 6-month-old. They're just cracking up. They were fighting the other day over which one was going to read it to the baby. And I believe the book even became a weapon at one point. So, but my kids can make anything into a weapon, so it's not any surprise. It's really, really good. So, John, what does your future look like? Do you have more book ideas?
Oh, I probably have about 15 other book ideas. The sequel to CinderToot is already written, so I'm doing the revisions on it. And then I have another kind of non-Toot book that'll hopefully come out next year. A children's book, of course, but it's all of these are just my creativity coming through. I used to one of my early first dreams in life when I was a teenager was to be on Saturday Night Live. That is my sense of humor. I love those kinds of things, and so this is me kind of filtering that through stories that I get to have fun with my kids with.
They're going to turn CinderToot into like the elf. You know what I mean?
I think there's so much possibility. There's so many fun stories left that I have. And so I would just encourage people, if they're interested, go to CinderToot.com. You'll be able to see like a sign-up form. You can get notified when new books come out. This is just the beginning. My kids and I literally asked the kids, if we write this book, we got to have a follow-up book. And I had all these ideas. I thought, what about this story? What about this story? And my 8-year-old daughter said, Dad, there's one story that you have to do next. And it was a story I only told them one time, and I had actually forgotten about. And she said it, and I thought, you are exactly right. You are so right. It's, again, just taking advice from the kids, right? They can participate in it. It makes it really fun.
That is a ton of fun, and what a great lesson for them. John, thank you so much for joining us today. Folks who are listening, you can pick up CinderToot on Amazon.com and go to CinderToot.com. That's CinderToot.com. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.